Hi and welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm a dual UK and US citizen, and today we're exploring the difference between UK and US computer keyboards. If you've never used a keyboard outside of your own country, you might not even know that they're different, but trust me when I tell you, it's one of the first things I realized after moving to the UK and using a desktop at work, because I consistently hit the wrong keys out of habit and may have actually cried one time. I was so frustrated and culture shocked because I kept hitting the @ symbol when I was wanting a quotation mark. Yes, the UK and US keyboard are different and in fact are the two major English language computer keyboard layouts. Now, based on my research, which was mostly done on Wikipedia, so literally anyone could have made anything up, in other English-speaking countries such as Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, the US keyboard rather than the UK keyboard is mostly used on their laptops and computers, which we'll get to in a little bit. So how do the US and UK keyboards differ? And more importantly, and more interesting, why? To compare, let's take a look at each keyboard and spot some of the differences. These are basic layouts found on Windows keyboards. Yours on your particular device may vary, so feel free to tell me in the comments where you're from and how it differs. But as much as we're all about diving into the niche topics here, we are not trying to bore the entire world with a long list of 86 variations on UK and US keyboards, so if this is slightly different from what you're expecting, forgive me. We'll keep both keyboard layouts on the screen so you can see how they differ in real time. To keep it easy, we'll go from bottom row to top row, and I will make this a little bit fast, so here we go. On the US layout, there is an extra Alt key to the right of the spacebar. On the UK layout, there is an Alt-GR key, which I had to look up and apparently means alt-graph or alternative or alternate graphic, and is often used to help type characters that are not widely used in the territory in which the keyboard is sold, such as foreign currency symbols, typographic marks, and accented letters. But everybody knows Americans mostly just stay in America, so why would we need that? Sorry, you guys, I'm kidding. I'm American. I'm allowed to say that. Next up, as we move to the second row, is that the American Shift key is longer than the UK Shift key on the left, and the US layout does not have the / key on the second row from the bottom. We'll find it later on in the fourth row up. On the third row up, we find that the UK, that kind of just sounded like throw up, didn't it? On the third row up, we find that the UK @ symbol is to the right of the colon and semicolon key, which is not the same in the US. And the UK also has the hash or pound sign. This sign is called a hash typically in the UK, and the pound sign in the US. This is in the third row. The Enter key is found on the third row of both keyboards, but the UK one takes up 2 rows rather than the US one, which is a single row Enter key. Are you not thrilled? Okay. Moving on up to the fourth row from the bottom, it's all the same until you look at the very right-hand side. The US layout now has the / key, where the UK layout has the top of the Enter key. And finally, the top row. The most important difference is that above the 2 key on the US keyboard is the @ symbol, whereas on the UK layout, it's a quotation mark. And we've now found the hash symbol on the US layout, which is above the 3 key, whereas in the UK, it's the pound sign. Other fun keyboard facts between the UK and the US that you didn't know: the UK has 1 more key than the US one does. And some UK keyboards do not label backspace, enter, tab, or shift with words, but instead just use symbols. And now that we've looked into how they're different, let's try and figure out why. Is there a reason? Is there UK versus US keyboard controversy? Because you guys know I'm all about the high stakes and deep-seated emotional and cultural reasonings between the differences between our two countries. Turns out not really. The stakes aren't quite as high on this one as for some of our other topics, but we can still learn something. There are some obvious reasons. What? There are some obvious reasons for some differences. Those in the UK are going to want to be able to find the currency pound sign more easily. I'm assuming you understand why. Whereas those in the US definitely won't need it as much, if ever. But the main reasons these keyboards are different is simply legacy. There are different standards in each country that have just become the norm. Someone who calls themselves Buoyant Puppy on the forums of macrumors.com said in 2013 that, as an ex-translator and layout designer of keyboards, he or she can confirm that they rarely have real practical justification for the differences, and yet almost everyone is nevertheless super defensive about the layout they're used to, so we're going to go ahead and take his statement as fact. You can easily switch your computer these days to use keyboards from around the world within the software itself, which I used to do in changing my UK keyboard on my laptop to an American layout. But of course, the actual symbols on the keys themselves wouldn't change, but that didn't matter as I was used to typing without looking, so my hands could find the keys I was looking for. Now I've been here long enough that I use a UK keyboard layout without switching to a US one, which I think means I win a medal or a passport or I've been here a long time or something like that. Interestingly, one fun fact about the use of the US keyboard layout in other English-speaking countries is that in the early days of Windows, you would only get to choose one setting that applied to both your keyboard and the language the computer was set to. But many countries that speak English as a first language do follow conventional British English spellings. So by choosing the US language setting to follow their US keyboard layout, Windows wouldn't stop telling them they were spelling words wrong that they actually weren't. So over time, Windows introduced the ability to choose the keyboard country and dialect country differently, meaning this problem was solved. So which keyboard is better? Really, there's no major difference, but our friend Buoyant Puppy from MacRumors.com did say that after working with dozens of keyboards, he or she prefers the US keyboard best. Their reasoning is the US keyboard has the least keys and thus is the least cramped. All those rarely used symbols are perfectly easy to place behind modifiers and you just get used to it and they don't slow you down in the least. So now you know keyboards across the pond. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.